Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Missick. I'm running for the Texas State Legislature to represent HD 18, which is Liberty, San Jacinto, Hardin, and East Montgomery County. And today is November the 9th, and this is my daily campaign report and update. So what I want to talk about in today's program is the Houston Chronicle and Ernest Bales. This week on Monday, the Houston Chronicle did a front page story on Ernest Bales, and the puff piece article was quite long. So what the article is about is how that Ernest Bales is opposing our Republican agenda, our Republican priorities, and our Republican governor, Greg Abbott, and how he's trying to obstruct educational reform. Now, the Houston Chronicle is a far left publication, so when this came out, people were like, oh my goodness, like Ernest Bales has got all this publicity and recognition. To me, it shows how desperate he is. Ernest Bales is vulnerable, and the Houston Chronicle knows it. And they're trying to swoop in and give him publicity to help him win this election, but it's not going to help him. In fact, I told my uncle about this. I said, hey, look, they have this article on Ernest Bales. Ernest Bales is on the front page of the paper, and the article is long. And he says, well, don't worry about it. Just use it for your publicity, because the left-wing Houston Chronicle is endorsing this Rhino, Republican name only, candidate, Ernest Bales, state representative, because he is furthering the Democrat agenda. So this article actually helps me, and of course I'm going to use it. Today I created some push cards exposing how that left-wing Democrats are endorsing Ernest Bales. And earlier, the Houston Chronicle did a story trying to dismiss our concerns about Colony Ridge Terranos Houston as a conspiracy theory. And I mentioned this before. I have my barber, she says, it's not a conspiracy theory. You just drive down the road just 2 or 3 miles, and there you are. You can see what's going on yourself. I want to say also that the fire, 1 mile from my home in Shepherd, there's this huge fire yesterday. And of course, I wasn't there. I had come to the church, but I had a family member in the house, my father's estate, and I was very concerned. I was afraid that there'd be a brush fire that'd burn down the whole thing, including my family estate, and that my family members would be roasted. But thank God, everything's okay. The fire was contained. So we prayed about that yesterday, and we know that God's a God that hears and answers prayer. I understand that only one person was seriously injured, but not in the life-threatening way. So thank God for that. So we need to have somebody that's close to my home. So we need to make sure that our communities are safe. We need to have industry and business, but safety first. That could have been a disaster. It could have burnt down the entire county and killed several people. So that was a big concern that happened yesterday. A big stressor for me, since that was at my home where this fire had broken out. The other thing I want to talk about is, like I said, today I'm working online to do campaign events. I'm working online to do campaign events. I want to announce that I'm having a Meet the Candidate event on November 13th at King of Saints Tabernacle. If you want to come on the 19th, which is a Sunday, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to have some food and refreshments, and people can come meet me, and I'll talk to people in person about the campaign and what we're doing and how we're going to win. I also want to mention that every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, I'm here at King of Saints Tabernacle, the church that my father founded, and we are going to pray for America every Wednesday night. If you want to come and support this prayer for the nation, it'd be good to have you come and support us. The last thing I want to mention, my intention is to do a 5 to 10 minute program encapsulating campaign activities every day. So the two things that I think are very important that happened recently is that yesterday we had the Republican debates. Now, Trump isn't involved in that. I really don't understand why we have Republicans running against President Trump for the presidency. I think it's ridiculous. And I'm kind of disappointed with Ron DeSantis. He shouldn't have ran against him. I really admired and respected what Ron DeSantis was doing in Florida, and I think he shouldn't have opposed President Trump. But I have to acknowledge that he did do great things in Florida. It's not perfect, but I think Ron DeSantis has been showing us how Republicans need to fight and win. The new one that's shining is Vivek Ramaswamy. And I want to encourage you to watch his exchange where what has happened is we had election day and on Tuesday, and the Republicans did not come out on top on this election day. It's very mediocre results. In fact, some people think that this election day was a disaster for Republicans, and there were some losses that I think are very significant. There were some wins. I want to talk about the losses really quick, and the losses include a radical pro-abortion legislation that was, I think, amended to the Constitution in Ohio, which supports late-term abortion, third trimester abortion, which is heinous. It's a very barbaric practice, and I think the only countries that do late-term abortion like that, is such a barbaric and cruel practice, is North Korea, China, and also the United States. It's very barbaric and savage, and we need to, I'm totally pro-life, but we need to, at the very least, illegalize abortion in the third trimester. And I think most people, even people that claim to be pro-abortion or pro-choice, do not support late-term abortions when the baby is completely viable. But my position is life begins at conception. Now, that wasn't. We also lost. There's a good candidate, a Trump candidate, that ran for governor in Kentucky. He almost won. It was like 52 to 48%, but he lost, and that was significant. However, the man he was running against was an incumbent, and incumbents have an advantage. And I think that people are all up in arms and dismayed about these losses that we had. Even though we had some wins, these were significant losses, and I acknowledge that. But we also need to acknowledge that a lot of people only are aware and engaged with elections during presidential elections. A lot of people don't even know who their congressmen or their senators are. That's just the way it is. And this was not. This election was an off year. It's 2023. It wasn't a midterm or a presidential election. So a lot of people just aren't engaged the way they should be. And most people don't vote all the time. They don't even know what a primary is. People who vote, most people just vote during the presidential elections. And some people who are a little bit more engaged do vote in the midterm elections. So that's a thing that we need to bear in mind when we look at how we didn't perform very well. But Vivek Ramaswamy did a very good exchange with his interrogators during this presidential debate. That's basically what they are. And I would encourage you to watch that. But what he said, number one, is he's acknowledging that we had these losses, and he's blaming it on Ronna Romney McDaniel, who is the head of the Republican National Convention. And since she's taken that position, all she's done is engineer Republican losses at every single election. She's a loser. She's terrible. But I think this is by design. I think that the Republican establishment, and she's part of the left-wing Republican establishment. Her uncle is Mitt Romney, who is just rabidly a never-Trumper. He felt slighted by Trump because he wanted to be Secretary of State. He wasn't given that position by Trump, so he's become this, this vendetta, the greatest nemesis that Donald Trump has. He doesn't care about anything but his little personal vendetta on Donald Trump. But he's not running again. And but his we got the left wing branch of the Republican Party, which includes the Bushes, the Cheneys, the McCains, and the Romneys. And so this woman is a Romney, and we have a uniparty, and they want the Republican Party to be a minority party, weak, and a token opposition party. As we can see from the actions of the Rhino establishment, these people are literally Rhinos, Republicans in name only. They're Democrats who are subverting the Republican Party from within. And I really believe that Ronna Romney McDaniel is a saboteur. And she's so bad that I think it's Harmeet Dillon ran against her, and even Mike Lindell, the Pillow Man, ran against her because she's destroying the Republican Party. And to placate people, she said, "This will be my last term, but I want to see through the end of 2024 election." She wants to help. She wants to help the Democrats defeat the Republican. So this woman is a saboteur. She's doing everything she can, and she's very effective at it. She's actually very effective at handing defeats to the Republican Party. And I think we're going to have to deal with it. Republican strategists and the Trump supporters are going to have to strategize, realizing that we have this fifth columnist in Ronnie McDaniel, and we have to deal with that as we strategize to win the 2024 election. I believe the survival of our nation is at stake. If we lose the 2024 election, it's our last chance. I really believe this last chance to save our republic. And if we lose it, we can look back and say that our country died when the Biden regime seized power unconstitutionally and illegally in 2020. But I'm going to be hopeful. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to fight for this country, and that's why we need candidates like me, serious conservative candidates that want to further the Republican agenda. So that's what I worked on today. The things we need to be aware of. But one thing I want to say that's very important, like Ravik Ramaswamy made two other points that I think are important. One is he says, what are we doing here? Why do we have all these liberal newscasters and news correspondents and liberal commentators, doing this, moderating this debate as moderators? All these people are left-wing radicals. Now, would Republicans have like Tucker Carlson or Greg Gutfeld or Joe Rogan, for that matter, people who are conservative or moderate, moderating their debates? Of course not. And yet the Republican establishment subjects Republican candidates to being, having these so-called left-wing, the so-called moderators who are left-wing who are attacking. So why do we subject ourselves to this? It's not even a real debate. And even Fox sends its most liberal correspondence to these debates, especially like Chris Wallace. Look how terrible Chris Wallace is. The other issue I want to conclude with, which I think is very important, is abortion. And like I mentioned, in Ohio, they have this heinous, wicked, I think it's going to invite the wrath of God on this country. We need to try to undo that. At the very least, now, I'm totally opposed against abortion. I'll do everything I can. And I have some pro-life activists that think that I support half measures, which I'll support any measure that limits abortion. So I think that we should, at the very least, start with illegalizing abortion in the third trimester, like the rest of the world, except for totalitarian regimes. Barbaric totalitarian regimes are the only ones that allow third trimester abortions. And we don't want to be like China or North Korea, and we need to abolish this wicked practice. But Fox has been, it's really sad to see people compromise their principles, like Sean Hannity. He goes, I'm pro-life except for rape, incest, to save the life, and blah, 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 blah. So he's not pro-life. And I think it's because Ainsley Earhart, his mistress, is moderating her position. And we had Steve Ducey, I think it's Brian Kilmeade, and Ainsley Earhart suggesting that the Republican Party needs to become a pro-abortion party because since the repeal of Roe versus Wade, the Democrats are up in arms about abortion. So we need to leave behind our dedication to the protection of sanctity of life. I strongly disagree, and I want to recommend that you read an article by Marjorie Taylor Greene, in which she says that we're not battling for the hearts and minds of the American people. We're not defending the cause of abortion through argumentation and education, and we need to do that. So we cannot compromise on this issue. And I've heard even Trump. I support Trump, and I have to acknowledge it's because of Trump that we have repealed Roe versus Wade. But Nikki Haley and others, Nancy Mace, I think, are trying to advocate that Republicans, so-called Republicans, moderate their position on abortion. That's not an option. We have to remain committed to our principles. And as we're getting into this election, we need candidates like me who are fervently and strongly pro-life, and we can't sacrifice the fact that we stand on the sanctity of human life. Our founding documents say that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The right to life. God creates life miraculously, and for us to go and destroy human life, which is what an unborn child is murder, and we cannot condone that. So I want to stay on course, and I also want to mention that I believe that Trump is going to stay true to his pro-life bona fides. But this is a Trump election. I'm putting out my principles, my policies, and my priorities. But in this election, we have to focus on two issues, on my election. Number one, we're going to close down Colony Ridge. Ernest Bales created Colony Ridge. I'm going to go in there to the State House and repeal House Bill 4341 and get rid of Colony Ridge. Number one. Number two, we're going to support Donald J. Trump. We need more MAGA candidates. And what Romney McDaniel is trying to do is weaken the Republican Party. And the reason why she's trying to bring about defeats, engineer defeats, is she wants to preserve the rhino power. She doesn't want Trumpism. She doesn't want a reinvigorated Republican Party. She doesn't want a Republican Party that's conservative and advances the conservative agenda that benefits all Americans of all races, nationalities. She doesn't want that, or ethnicities. Everybody. She wants to maintain the status quo of a weak, insipid, and failing Republican Party. That's her agenda. And that's why we have to get up and fight and get Trump in there so we can defeat the rhinos. And the fact of the matter is, Democrats fight tooth and nail for Marxism, their left-wing extremism, and they're united in creating a totalitarian police state. And yet, the Republicans are always divided, and we need to get the fervency. And we need to see our nation's in decline. It's obvious. The standard of living is declined. The cost of living is in decline. Price of fuel, the price of groceries, hyperinflation. We're becoming a third world country. And we have to fight back. And we need people who are going to fight back, like Donald J. Trump, and also like Ron DeSantis was doing in Florida. So that's the kind of candidate I am, a MAGA candidate. I'm Ultra MAGA man. And I ask that you support me, and also please come to our Meet the Candidate Day on November 19th. I'm going to be doing other events, and we're getting pretty close to just having 3 months, right? We're close to being halfway through November, so we're going to have December, January, and February. And of course, January, February, we have to campaign very, very fervently, and that's when it really matters. That's when people are going to be engaged. And like I said, a lot of people don't even know about primaries and what they are. And we need to go after those people. And of course, we need to go after people who vote, people concerned about Colony Ridge, and the immigration issue, which that's what Ernest Bales and the Rhinos have been doing is they've been stopping border security measures, they've been stopping school choice, and we need to stop them and advance conservatism. So we need to go out and campaign and have fun doing it and win this election to save Texas and save the United States of America. So God bless you. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'll see you soon.
A super frame that will not rest. He'll right every wrong. Let us all try and help to soothe the savage breast.